Good morning, evening, afternoon. Hi, hello. So, today's the day that we open the next booster pack, the second that I purchased Ether Drift. And like everything else on this channel, we're going to see if we can string something at least semi coherent from the contents. So, let's get into it. Let's get into it, like INTUIT, because we're gonna be using that intuition. Oh, it's a death race. Okay, I was like, why is this like checkerboard? That's the flag. See, I was like, what's up with this checkerboard pattern? It's a race. I forgot. Interesting though. Interesting little synchronicities. Excuse me. Let's see what is up. I think some of these, there it is. Ooh, if I open it like this, I may be able to slide them back in. We have another token. Last time it was spirit. This time the token creature is a goblin, a red goblin. So it's a red goblin on one side, and then a thopter on the other, which is an artifact creature. I'm like, what's that? The goblins, some of the goblins that have been coming out lately have been interesting, because there was the goblin warrior in the last one, the like dark goblin warrior that could summon spirits of light or a spirit of light. And then in that one video, it was also like the goblin shaman that had like, I don't know, I guess it's like that which is of dark but not in opposition to light. The goblins have been lately, which is interesting. Well, I guess like in a way, excuse me, in a way, it could almost also be an energy of challenge, opposition, or antagonization that is like intended for growth, right? Like something that is not intended to harm or I guess it's an interesting thing to say because like challenges and antagonization and opposition aren't like great. It's something intended to be overcome rather than something that is intended to be harsh or difficult for the sake of being harsh or difficult or for the furthering of another agenda or whatever. So it's almost like or in that way, it's less surprising that there is a force of like light that operates behind it or that is a result of its actions, and operations, and stuff like that. Excuse me, sorry. I feel like I wasn't yawning this much before I went live. Also, I'm expecting a call at some time. I got a call this morning. I thought it would be in the afternoon. So whenever it's fair game, I guess, which is fine. This artifact creature is interesting though. Thopter. This flying artifact creature. It looks like it's powered by spirits. Now, because they're like all these spirits and a pyramid. I didn't even notice the pyramids. I mean, the top is floating off of it, but you know. And we see the lightning in the back. It is given the energy of the Watcher of the Wayside that has been given new purpose, right? And which is like not, I can, I mean, I was going to say it's not surprising because it felt like there was some kind of flow between the first and this one, right? Like now that that connection has been reestablished, or now that the connection is establishing, someone has gone through their lightning proving, there are certain things that are like coming back online. It's not surprising, excuse me, to see an artifact creature with a motive force now. Cool. The goblin was attached to the lightning proving too, because it was the goblin on one side, and then I think another dragon, the light dragon, on the other. And it was like the goblin was dark, the dragon was light, or swamp and basic. Around the lightning proving, seize opportunity. Okay, cool. So the cards are face down, and we're just gonna flip them up one by one. So first we have a swamp, just a basic land swamp, nothing fancy. What's interesting is though that there's like this whole city here. I feel like I almost see the card better in the in the screen. It gives an almost Atlantis vibe. This also, excuse me, I'll wake up, I promise. Well, I'm a Pisces, so the closer to dream I am, the more me. There's been an energy. It's, I don't know if it's necessarily the same, similar in nature to the forest clearing in another booster pack. Um, and it was like, what's this clearing in the forest? Like, we passed this spot 4 days ago and this wasn't here. There was like the guides that lead people out of the forest. And it was that whole like, there is no guide, there is no guidance to get to this point and spot, which a similar energy more recently came out that was like, because of the nature of the work, or because of the nature of the path, or because of the nature of the journey, because of the nature of challenge, antagonization, opposition, because of the nature of sacrifice, there are certain things that we aren't asked to do, but that we take it upon ourselves to do. Right. Because free will is a thing. And not only is free will a thing, but maybe it's because there are so many choices and challenges along that path that it would be no one's will to choose, if that even makes sense, because of what's required. Or not even required, because of what it entails, because of what's a part of it. And again, you know, we can encourage ourselves. We can see something and be like, I want that. And then we self initiate. I mean, it's a self initiated path regardless, but we self initiate because someone told us to, or because we take something as resonant for us, and maybe it does. And then we get on there and it's like, whoa. And it's like, yeah, but anyway, there was that energy of the clearing in the forest. Also, you could say it's the rugged highlands, right? The area where that the Wayside Watcher was left. It's like now there's an entire city in the forest. It's giving more of like an abyss or a depths, which also came out recently, I think at the Scorpio full moon, because there was a part of the abyss of Scorpio that is next to despair, depression, stuff like that, like heavy emotion. But then there's also a part of Scorpio that is like the depths of the psyche, and the interface that holds the interface between the self and the all, the self and the one. You could say it's a community of people who have found their way, right? Through the abyss, through the forest, through the whatever, to the spire. I guess like there have been a few. Oh, I don't know if I want to say gateways or portals. Excuse me. I'm still listening to that same audiobook that I'm listening to. And now, like, tragedy has struck. I'm near the end of the first one. And I'm like, wow, I can tell. I guess I was, whatever. I don't know. I didn't think that they would take people that you get attached to. And now I'm like, do I want to keep investing? Because apparently anybody is fair game. Um, but there's an astral space that they go into. And that astral space, so like they are in a desert, but the desert has several like oases and verdant areas because those areas are connected through an astral portal to a watery world. And so they go into that space to investigate something weird was going on with the water. They go into that space to investigate and they find like several portals to different places around the desert, right? So it was probably their understanding that the desert connected to the same place. Like these aren't different watery worlds or watery places that these oases are connected to. In that it's like, so if this city is the place, right? Then there could have been a portal that you would find in the spire outside of time, and a portal that you'd find in the forest clearing, the portal that you'd find below the depths of Scorpio. Many ways. Oh, the foil card, Thunderhead Gunner. This is a shark pirate. It has reach, which means it can affect flying creatures without interesting without flying. Discard a card, draw a card, activate only as a sorcery and only once each turn. And it's free. It's free to discard a card and draw a card. I guess you would have to tap it, which means that it can't attack or defend. I don't think tapped creatures can defend. I don't know. Fire the what common cannon, girl. It's foil, so it's a little. There we go. Fire the cannon, mates. Fire it quick. The sea's full of chum, and we want our pick. Oh, it's a shanty. A kill hauler shanty. Fire the cannon, mates. Fire it quick. The sea's full of chum and we want our pick. What's interesting is, though, again, we have this flying artifact creature, token creature. This shark from the depths of the water has the reach to affect this. Oh, this is so weird. It's giving me like new recruit type energy. Also, in the story engine at the top of the year, because I was mostly using it when I got it, um, there was the ridge. It was like the ridge of the hunters, and there was this fertile land that existed on the other side of the ridge, and then there was like the archive of the sun or something like that on the other side. That was another time where it was like there's been thematically similar but different sort of environments. Interesting. Shark pirates. Next is Gas Guzzler, which is a vampire rogue. Start your engines. If you have no speed, it starts at 1. It increases once on each of your turns. When an opponent loses life, max speed is 4. This creature enters tapped. Max speed for 1 shadow mana. You can sacrifice another creature or vehicle to draw a card. Gustal's vampires took fuel from the dead. Gustal's vampires took fuel from the dead. What an interesting. See, I feel like this is like low key that goblin. Because these vampires don't take fuel from the living, they don't pose a threat to the living. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah. We'll just we'll just leave it there. Assuming these vampires aren't, because well, like technically, I can only feed off of the not living, so and I'm hungry, so I guess I'm gonna have to kill you. And it's like no, it feels like it poses no threat to the living, which is again, it's this interplay of like the dark and light, or it's when that challenge, antagonization, or opposition, like it's for the purpose of, you could say, making heroes, sure, forging the strongest of blades. And how much can we complain really when we throw ourselves into the fire? You know what I mean? I mean, we can complain a lot, but again, going back to that whole like self initiation, this also feels like, though, it feels like um, kind of sort of going back to the. I had it and I lost it. It came out recently. In a way, I feel like it did. Oh yeah, the Earth. Kind of sort of going back to that big cat that had feasted on like generations of conflict. Kirsty, hey, how are you doing? How are you? I was gonna say how art thou, and anyway, I'm listening to this audiobook and there's like Australian accents and it's having a Doctor Who effect on me. The Doctor Who effect is when I would like watch a bunch of Doctor Who back in the day, and there'd be like a bunch of like UK accents from all over, and I would just like. Anyway, this gas guzzler it feels like it camps outside. So like there are these cities, right? Or there is this city that is connected through astral portals to all these challenging places. What it's connected to is like there are forces of nature, there are forces of earth, and then there are divine forces. And the light and dark, or the light and shadow, I don't, the shadow and the anti shadow, maybe. I guess there's like light and anti light, there's dark and anti dark. Um, the shadow and the anti shadow. The anti shadow is something that obstructs the dark to cast light, but it is not of light. And shadow is something that obstructs the light, but it is not of dark. Like light and dark being more divine concepts. Good day. He's like, and then he's in this world that's not Australia. And he goes up to people like, good day, mate. We're gonna, we're gonna have a Barbie or something, and you're invited. And people are like, what? Because he has a translation ability. And the translation ability translates the words, but gives no context. So they are just like, I don't know what that means. Anyway, yeah. It's which is kind of interesting, I guess, because when the Mother of Cups came out as the almost decider on, not the decider, because the significator of we interpret a vision and what we get from a vision and how we act based off of that vision determines which outcome we receive. And that could be like that translation ability, right? Because the ability translates everything, but again, it doesn't provide any context for anything. And so he'll reference like fruits or animals that exist in his world. And he'd be like, that's like our workhorse. And they'll be like, what's a horse? So it's again, it's just like interesting that again, like the translation ability works, but it doesn't bridge gaps in understanding. Anyway, I've been enjoying it immensely. um, but it's like, so you have these cities. Yeah, there are the divine forces, and then there are these like earthly forces, and earthly forces kind of sort of resulting from life on earth. I was thinking about this yesterday when I was walking for no particular reason. Or if there was a particular reason, I don't necessarily remember. But I was thinking about the whole, it came out in the cards, I think last time, like the difference or the time within the past three, since I've been back, um, that like there was the difference between someone who was put in a position of power and someone who was powerful or who like naturally innately has that power. And when I was walking, it was like within certain, I don't want to say certain, it's like how we create boogeymen, right? We elect people to positions of power, or people manipulate themselves into a position of power or authority. And that power and authority is largely based upon either the number of people that follow them or the obedience and subservience of people, the acquiescence of people to comply with whatever they demand or whatever, right? So like there is no true inherent like authority because there isn't. It's not like they say something and then people are forced to like do whatever against their will. Now there are pressures, of course, but again, that's like a power that's resultant of people, and that's like the earth stuff, earthly powers and polarities and dynamics. Like something like a divine power, it is, and it doesn't require anyone to believe in it or whatever. And that's more like the divine thing. And so, but for some reason it was like, because I've read like I've seen it across various forms of literature and media where it's like there are old gods, but as their faiths dwindled and as like the world moved on, then they like the gods kind of lost their power because there aren't enough people that believe in them like they used to. And so it was kind of sort of more so along that lines of like, because it was what, the Heroes of Olympus? Was it the Heroes of Olympus? Maybe not the Heroes of Olympus. It was something else where it was like the gods were limited because people didn't worship like they used to. People aren't making sacrifices, so we don't have any power. And then it was like, well, there's that kind of whatever, and then there are, I'm assuming, the transcendent beings that are truly powerful. And again, they require no worship, they require no knowledge of their existence, they don't require anything because they are who and what they are. And they're not made by people. And so there's also like the gas guzzlers that feel like earthly forces that prey on those who seek divine ones, right? Again, because of the nature of man and because of the nature of the ego of man and because of access to information and because the ease to have a platform and because the world is what the world is and because so many of us want what we want, which is like better. Again, like we listen to whatever, we self-initiate, we listen to a narrative or something that's like hot and it's circulating, everybody's talking about it. Some people are talking about it because they want to build a platform and they know that if they talk about it they're going to get the views because everybody's talking about it. People self-initiate on paths, people do all kinds of stuff that, again, it sounds good, and it's like these are the forces that would like feed on the people who kind of like, I guess, buy into it but don't make it, on the ones that metaphorically die on their ways to these cities. And it's almost like there's a new, I don't want to say like a new cast of beings that have come into existence or that have recently gained power because everything is so like there are so many elements of, I've only been on YouTube in this capacity for what, 6 years now, roughly six. You could say like five, but already it's like so much of like the healing journey and the shadow work and crystals and astrology and like knowing your signs, like it permeates culture in a lot of ways. Like now I hear it like people IRL in the real world like talking about it. I have friends who are like, what's a like, does anyone have book recommendations for like, if you're doing shadow work and stuff? And like, again, on one hand, it's really gorgeous and it's beautiful that we all over the world, I'm assuming, it's like people are more invested and investing more in their well-being outside of the like a career or whatever, because 5 years ago we saw how like unreliable like when everything stopped, then it started to crumble under its own weight, and we as people were left with our lives you know and so again, like on that, in that way, it is amazing, but there are so many people who are like so green or so that have so much desire to find something, anything that will help them, that again, it doesn't take a certain level of knowledge. It doesn't take a certain kind of character. There are no stipulations on who can create a YouTube channel, who can make an Instagram, who can go viral, who can figure out the algorithm, who can do whatever, who can amass followers, and then who can mentally, emotionally, and spiritually affect the growth of tens, hundreds, thousands of people. And I remember there was like a hot minute where it was like this YouTuber is doing that and this YouTuber is doing something else. And it's like, yeah, but like YouTubers are people. And not that celebrity is necessarily any different, but like you know what I mean? Just because someone is in a certain position doesn't make them any less human or any more virtuous than anyone else. And so again, it's like I don't that but that's there's always not always, but there's always been something kind of like sinister or tricky about the journey to me. And like even in the beginning, when I was fresh and I was listening to like I was like hearing certain narratives and stuff. And for me, it was like I can hear truth in this. Part of this resonates as true to me, but a part of this seems almost like flimsy. And there are so many people who again are green, who are new, who don't know anything, who are looking for resources and information, who are vulnerable. And there are people who will take advantage of that vulnerability. And there are energies that will take advantage of that vulnerability. And again, like it's this whole thing. But these gas guzzlers, it's feeling like I guess you could say like low energy, whatever, that feeds on the people who get on the path and who struggle with it. And it's not that we don't struggle, but again, it's like on the flip side of that, because we have free will and because part of being human or part of living on earth or part of existing on earth even is adapting and evolving, right? Landscapes adapt and evolve. The Grand Canyon wasn't always a canyon, you know. Before it was worn by water, it was something else. Rocks, well, trees are alive. But you get the point. And so it's like on the flip side of that, if this is the challenge, adversity, or whatever, this is the situation that causes us to swing our free will in the other direction and then come into some kind of growth or empowerment or whatever, then ultimately it feels like that divine non interference sort of withholds or can withhold, right? It's building character or it's someone's villain origin story. So yeah, that's this like it is what it is. What's next? We still got so many cards. Whoa, whoa, what is this? Sun Billow Verge. You can tap it to add basic or light mana, or if you control a mountain or a plains card, you can tap it to add fire mana. Oh my gosh, is this literally a portal? Is this literally an astral portal? Loot is free to go where he wants. So let's make sure the kid gets there in one piece. Chandra Nalar. We know Chandra Nalar. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. Look at this compared to like all of this. Well, compared to this, like, ooh, oh gosh. Gas guzzler doesn't even want to stay in my hand. Also, I was like, is that like an astral portal up there? You see a different realm on the other side of that golden gate. It also looks like it distorts space. Unless the stones in the land are naturally like wavy like that. This is almost like also giving the gate of Sahakiel. I remember when like the gate of Sahakiel was like a thing. You know what I mean? The energy of it just hasn't like come out in a while. Not as it appeared then. Um oh, I was gonna say something else. There was something else about this. I guess the saying fire without light. What is it? Is like zeal without knowledge. Zeal without knowledge is fire without light. Because it has to be grounded in the plains or in the mountain to get that fire. I don't. It's yeah. I guess North Node. My North Node is in Sagittarius. That's my excuse. You know the people who can't stand people that use astrology as an excuse to justify their terrible behavior. Well, that's me today. I'm kidding. I guess kind of. It's like I'm just a human. I'm a person like any other person, and I see some stuff, or I see the way at large. I feel like I've observed not necessarily like different waves within the community, and it's not isolated to the community. I guess you could say it's common to belief of faith and or religion. I had another, it's fine, where I don't know, like there are, I guess what Neptune is in Aries now, which is like the spiritual warrior. There's just been like so many times being a bro, I would never do that. As a Pisces, I totally would. I totally would. Um, because Pisces are like into that stuff. You know what I mean? um, but there are so many. I just feel like if I were like the devil, or if I were devil energy, or if I was some low vibe, whatever, I wouldn't be afraid of like. I feel like I haven't witnessed or encountered anyone that I'd be afraid of because we as people were so primarily, I guess, into our own physical, material well being, which as living beings makes sense. But also, it's like our judgment can be so easily affected by our desires and our egos and our like want to be right, need to be right, our avoidance to anything uncomfortable. Like we will intentionally semi consciously, subconsciously, and consciously choose ignorance or like to not observe certain things for the sake of comfortability. And who is that a threat to, truly? You know what I mean? And so I guess I'm saying that to say, like, especially with the gas guzzlers being these energies that feed on people who are on the path, but who have a rough go at it. It's like devil energy has very, 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 very little to lose by guiding people in the direction of light or actual light. Again, because it's like, let's say, even like biblically, right? You can have the devil that would lead people to church. But because people are human, even if they know what they're supposed to do, not like they're going to struggle internally to do what they know they need to do. They're going to struggle to do this or they're going to struggle to do that. And then the guilt that they now feel at knowing that I should be doing this, but I'm still doing that. That's like a whole new thing to feed off of. Because at least when someone's doing wrong or doing bad, you can feed off of that negativity that is how they terrorize the world. But now, like, without that knowing and awareness, but now with that knowing and awareness, it's like, oh, now I also get the guilt that they're feeling for still doing this stuff or whatever. And again, it's just like us and our egos, we can feel so empowered, we can feel like a threat, we can feel like whatever, but ultimately it's like, I don't know, if you cleaning up and sweeping to the left, you got all this stuff to feed off on the right. You know what I mean? Again, it's almost like there is no loss, even when most people do pursue the right path or the right thing. It's like now there's even more gas guzzlers and energy vampires and even more narcissists than there were before we even knew about narcissists and energy vampires. Maybe not, but it almost there's almost this feeling of like there are these new earthly powers that are establishing themselves. Well, I guess, but again, there's also the feeling of like it's allowed or it's permitted because ultimately we as people will reach that point where we grow and evolve and change and where we are no longer susceptible to whatever and we're not prime feedings for whatever gas guzzler or gas guzzlers happen to be nearby. It's like this sun below verge is a real place, and there are more and 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 more people making it to the city. I mean, making it to the clearing enough to the point where there's a city of light in the heart of the dark. You know what I mean? And divine light and divine dark are not at odds with each other in the same way that light and shadow are. The stars don't compete in the sky over how, whatever. You know what I mean? The sun just shines, and we on Earth thrive because of it. But the darkness and the void of space isn't concerned because the sun is shining, and the sun isn't trying to outshine whatever darkness to do what it just is luminous. You know what I mean? And those that are affected by its light are, and those that aren't. There are other stars in the sky. There are other suns for other solar systems and other planets. It's because we struggle against our own nature and natures that we almost project that struggle. And of course, we're all wine, and so it is what it is. I don't know. It's just kind of interesting and intriguing to me. But that's part of that whole like there's a card in Diceology. There's like two cards, two or three in Diceology. But there's one that's like a well-crafted illusion. But the illusion is tailor-made, right? So to the person under the illusion, it looks like real life. But to anybody outside of it, they can see the flaws. It's like you don't see like the inconsistencies here. Like you claim to believe, support one thing, but what you invest your power in operates in a completely different direction. And you think that'll be your salvation? It's like it don't even do what you just got to chalk it up to people being people, you know. We all grow and learn and evolve and change. And in order for things to truly be long lasting, we have to go through that process, right? The caterpillar doesn't emerge the butterfly after a day or a second. And who knows what happens inside the chrysalis. Cool. Anyway, Sunbelt Verge is interesting though. I almost again we see our astral portal. I wonder if it's coming. How did I not see that? The pyramids in this doctor, there's a pyramid with the floating top through that portal. You see that? I was like, whoa. I was just like looking at it. Are you going to focus now? Anyway, you could probably see it. There's a pyramid with a floating top. I was like, wait, I've seen pyramids with floating tops. It's here. Interesting. But it's like dark here. It's all like, maybe that's sunset there. But again, that goes back to the whole yin yang action and third chakra archangel Raphael versus the hostilities, heartbreak, and whatever that other card was. If you just look at the actions of something, that can tell you so much, but it's not necessarily definitive. It's because we go through hardship, challenges, trials, tribulations that we become stronger, that we emerge better, right? Tempered, forged. And so it's allowed, it's permitted. Also, we have free will. And free will isn't necessarily, I want this, I choose this, I manifest this, so I am entitled to have it. Sometimes free will is like, I want this, I'm going to do the work that I need to do to get this. I'm going to make sure that once I get it, I can keep it. Right? I want it for a lifetime, not for a season, not for a day before I self sabotage the crap out of it. And if that's something that we want, then we become the person who has it. Cool. All right. Next, we have Tyrox, the Sordid Tyrant. This is a dinosaur warrior. The Avishkari delegation consider this is all flavor text. This whole card is flavor text. That is wild. And it's fine. The Avishkari, really? The Avishkari delegation considered their treaties with the sword autocracy settled. They considered their treaties with the sword autocracy settled, but that was a crucial misunderstanding. To the autocracy, diplomacy is a matter of power, not paper. Testing the Grand Prix defenses is merely their way of making a counteroffer. I have no clue the story behind the death brace of Ether Drift. Also, but that was like this. Okay, it's fine. Is it fine? Sure. What is? Hold up. I'm gonna Google it because there is so many things floating in my brain. Autocracy, not an oligarchy or a democracy. Autocracy. A system of government by one person with absolute power. So, autocracy versus dictatorship. Autocracy and dictatorship are often used interchangeably but have slight differences in meaning. Autocracy broadly refers to a government where power is concentrated in one person or a small group, often without accountability to the public. Dictatorship, a more specific form of autocracy, describes a government controlled by a single person who has absolute power, often obtained through force or intimidation. So there's the difference between autocracy and dictatorship. I'm sorry. It's fine. The Avishkari delegation considered their treaties with the Sorid autocracy settled, but that was a crucial misunderstanding. To the autocracy, diplomacy is a matter of power, not paper. Testing the Grand Prix defenses is merely their way of making a counteroffer. This line is like catching me up. To the autocracy, diplomacy is a matter of power, not paper. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Um, because the autocracy is like someone, it's a government, a people's ruled by absolute power. So, of course, to the absolute power, they would only be diplomatic to those of a power of note, right? It could be of equal power, of greater power. I'd say of note because it feels like it could be a lesser power on some kind of scale, but still like a respectable power. And so maybe testing the Grand Prix defenses is them testing the power of the Avishkari delegation, assuming the Avishkari delegation is the whoever that's putting on the Grand Prix, right? And that it's interesting because again, and this is just like observations and stuff. It's not necessarily anyway. Because it makes me think of like, we declare ourselves to be sovereign beings and we declare ourselves to be gods or goddesses with little g's or big g's. I saw something on Twitter, I think that was like, we're the children of God, but we're not, like, we're told not to consider ourselves to be gods. Is not the child of a dog. And it's like, okay. But it's almost like it's that kind of mentality mixed with the sovereignty, mixed with whatever, where we declare something and the universe is like, okay, you are sovereign, you are whatever, you got this. go ahead and do whatever. And then we're like, why am I being tested? Why am I being challenged? Why am I being tried? And it's like, girl, you're a baby that told the parent that absolutely respects free will that you don't want any help, that you got this all on your own. And they said, okay, go out there, fly, little one. And then you're like, oh my gosh, everything is so much harder than I thought it'd be. Like, also, probably on that same walk, I was thinking of the demiurge again, just in the context, like, because I feel like in the context where I've heard it, it's always like this evil power that is doing whatever. But it's like, again, if we call ourselves sovereign, if we say that I want to be the creator of my life, and the universe goes, okay, hands off, here's your blank canvas. If we don't do anything to paint that canvas, the canvas will remain blank. And if we don't protect that canvas from the elements, it will wear. You know what I mean? It's like the spoiled kid who is like, I'm going to go out into the world and I'm going to make a name for myself on my own name. And then they're surprised when people don't just like do stuff for them, or they're surprised when things aren't just handed to them, because what they thought of the world and the workings of the world, like that, was developed while they were under the protection and under the power of the name of their parents or whoever established whatever. And of course, like, there's only so much you can do to prepare somebody for the real world while they're still in your care, but once they get out there, it's like it's on them. So we go to these powers, I guess, and we demand, sometimes, some of us, maybe because somebody pulling cards on the YouTube said it, or because we listened to something and we felt really empowered. So yeah, because we're doing our own whatever, and we think we're the ish when we're not even the fart. Oh, I guess we find out we're not even the fart. Like, we ain't even a bean in the belly, not even a rumble. We're not even irritation in the gut of whatever to produce a little bit of gas. You know what I mean? And these are powers that respect power. If you go to the divine and you declare yourself to be something, don't be surprised when you're asked to be something. You know what I mean? If we go to the divine and declare ourselves to be whatever, if we go to anybody or anything and to say we're whatever, why would we be surprised when we're expected to do or be what we claim to do or be? Diplomacy is a matter of power, not paper, right? This ain't necessarily, well, I have a soul contract and it's in my Akashic record that I blah 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 whatever. It's like, girl, paper don't mean nothing. Everybody got something, and anybody could come up with a contract, real or forged. You still got to do something with it. I'm on my Dunkin' Donuts app. I claimed a free sandwich. I didn't use the sandwich, and now I'm mad that they didn't refund my points. I got a month to get my sandwich. I can't get my points back and decide to get donuts instead, which is probably a good thing. Okay. And so, like, obviously, because of the fire imagery, the Tyrok sword tyrant, now they call him a tyrant, which would imply dictatorship, but it's an autocracy. And with the association of fire, the Four of Wands, the demiurge, the one who is in control of their own reality, for them, their life is an autocracy. They are the power in their life, and their world conforms to it, right? But this is an autocracy amidst other governments and other peoples. So within their land, within themselves, they can be this autocracy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that other people will listen or respect or whatever, because other lands, other peoples are governed by other, forms of government. Now you can have a group of autocracies. You can have people that respect the absolute power of other people. And again, going back to divine light and divine dark, you can have absolute powers that respect the absolute power of another. That doesn't have to go and bring whoever under their power or do whatever. Otherwise, there would be no concept of diplomacy at all. Diplomacy to this autocracy is reserved for the powerful, because otherwise, this ain't a daycare, this ain't a nursery, this ain't whatever. If you still learning or you still need to go and do whatever, you know, go and find some friends your own age. Let the adults, have their time. We get enough of kids when we at home. We don't go on vacation to deal with somebody else's kids. If I wanted to be around kids, I go and be around, my family's kids in my family, not strangers. I'm not a teacher. Hello? Some people like kids, so that's why I give like the teachers and the daycare workers and people who want to be around kids, other people's kids, you know, let them do that. This autocracy, Tyrox, that ain't his thing. Tyrox is like an iron sharpens iron type of thing, right? And there are some things that are so brittle that whether sharpening or sharpened will break. And then Tyrox feels bad. It's like, well, another one broke. maybe there was a point in time where it was paper. And then you find out it's like, girl, people they're doing what? Aren't they so what? And Tyrox is like, I respect my power. Absolutely. And so if I'm going to be associated with whoever or whatever, if my name is going to be attached to whoever and whatever, it has to be a power that I can respect. Absolutely. Because otherwise, it's like if you're coming to me for protection, you can be under my autocracy. If you're coming to me for camaraderie, for community, then be a respectable power. Or just know that when we go out and do powerful things, powerful people are required. We ain't got time. Because again, in the story I'm listening to, there's like a whole bunch of people. They go into the astral space, right, to investigate what's happening in this astral space. And there's a whole bunch of people. And all of the powerful people know that the team would be much more effective with less people. There are people who have socioeconomic power, but who have little to no combat experience or combat power, who, because of their socioeconomic position, feel like they should be leading and running things. But when the fight breaks out, they're the first ones to try to run. And of course, it's a mess. Anyway, I feel like that's enough. I feel like that's enough of this. But this is a fiery person in the fiery realm. Also, she's giving the lightning proving. I have these right here, so I don't have to go flipping through everything. Oh, it's lit. It's at the bottom. Seize opportunity. It's giving that. What was it? In this year's lightning proving, Paula reclaimed her confidence and her place in the Mardu. So I guess that's another thing too, is to have confidence in that power. And maybe those are the lesser respectable powers. Maybe lesser respectable powers are the confident ones. And it's confident, it's not cocky. It's knowing who you are and what you do and doing it well. Right. Like that's the difference between a certain egotism too, right? Like there's a difference between, is that relevant? Does that matter? I feel like kind of. Sure, why not? Since we're talking about autocracy and power. And oh, that was the thing. Was it 2 days ago? Or was it yesterday? Recently. No, it may have been 2 days ago. It is not the nature of power to corrupt. It is the nature of man to be corrupted by power. That partnered with the boon and the bane of the challenge of the Ace of Chalices to either make ourselves appear to be more or to make ourselves appear to be less. This absolute power, the absoluteness of this power is that it's a self empowerment. It's absolute because it's not comparative, right? And that's the confidence that was built in Paula when she actually successfully completed the proving. And she was like, whoa, like maybe I am actually like really good at this. Like I knew I was good at this, but against these challenges, these obstacles, this opposition to this level, like on paper, I was really worried. But when everything went down, it's like, whoa, I did that. I kind of ate. No crumbs, girl. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. All right. Sure. What's next? Next is Tune Up, which is a sorcery. Return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If it's a vehicle, it becomes an artifact creature. For most people, the odds would be insurmountable, Duretti said. But we're not most people, Pia replied. Oh my God. Again, the cards are face down. And I was like, should I even go there? I was like, yeah, there's the confirmation. Oh, you can't even see it. There's the confirmation. It's in the flavor text on the card. For most people, the odds would be insurmountable. For most people, it would be impossible. Most people would cave under this. For most people, the gas guzzlers would be feasting. Okay. But we're not most people. We can go the distance. Hello. Paula, who reclaimed her place in Mardu, again, it's like there's an entire city of people now that have become lights in the dark, that have overcome the insurmountable, who have overcome the limitations of their human nature. And you don't have to be inhuman to do so. I guess you become superhuman, right? That makes your like ego super ego. The super ego is when you can be like considerate of others, right? In the id, the ego, and the super ego, Lord of the Flies, super ego. Ego is itself. Super ego extends to others. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. The part of a person's mind that acts as a self critical conscience, reflecting social standards learned from parents and teachers. Mm, it represents internalized parental and societal standards dictating what is right and wrong. The superego's function is to suppress unacceptable impulses from the id and to persuade the ego to choose moral behavior. There you go. So we take some, we leave some. Instead of it being inherited pressures, it's like things that we learn to value. It's that alignment of the self and the soul, right? And sometimes the soul alignment can, I don't know, that's how you get people that like even that have like a lot of power. That's one of the things that can keep an autocracy from devolving or turning into a dictatorship, where it's not a matter of force or intimidation or anything else, where you can where Tyrox can be in absolute power but not feel the need to exert that power unnecessarily, right? that makes me think of, it was like some card, the Five of Wands and the King of Wands. I think it was the Seven of Swords or the Seven of Wands. The Five of Wands and the King of Wands. And it's like the King of Wands is like, I'm the King of Wands. I don't have to respond to a challenge or whatever just because I've been challenged. Like, I'm not that pressed, I guess. I don't know. Like that kind of energy. This tune up is interesting though. Also, after Tyrox of Fire, we have the tune up of Light. And this is immediately after the Sun Below Verge, the land of light that can also produce fire. And then we have the creature of fire and the creature of light. I mean, it's a sorcery, not a creature, but same difference. Cool. Return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If it's a vehicle, it becomes an artifact creature. We see Thopter, our token artifact creature. And I'm assuming, yeah, it's flying. It's some kind of artifact flying vehicle powered by these spirits. The spirits of light in this tune-up. And it's returned from the graveyard. The return from the graveyard could be the spirits, but it's giving me how the Watcher of the Wayside had fell into disuse, and like it had been so long since it was given a command that it forgot what its last one was. It had no purpose. It was just like sitting there. The tune-up has called it back to the battlefield. Pala and Pia have called it back. Cool. For most people, the odds would be insurmountable, Duretti said, but we're not most people, Pia replied. Cool. Love that. I feel like Tyrox would love that. Like, you are powerful, and you know that you're powerful. That I can respect. I almost wonder. I almost wonder with that Tyrox energy, if diplomacy really is a matter of power and not paper. It feels like there would have to be something that entices, I guess, Tyrox, for Tyrox to see as like, yeah, there would have to be something for somebody to not just like be straight up dismissed at the very least, right? I also love the absolute power of Tyrox because, again, it's that whole like, there are the powerful who are made by people, and then there are those who are powerful because they are powerful, and they don't require any backing. They don't require you knowing who they are. They don't require worship to be powerful. They just are. They don't require someone's name. They don't require a certain number of followers. They just are. Next, we have Tyrion, the world tyrant. Another tyrant. This is a tyrant of earth, where before we had a tyrant of fire. Now, with the last deck, earth was mostly like those earthly sort of like influences and forces, right? I guess you could say earth more of man's struggle against like the flesh and testing of the spirit. But anyway. Oh, this is another one that's like all flavor text. Cool. This is dinosaur ooze. What? It's not even. We have a dinosaur warrior in of fire with Tyrox, and then dinosaur ooze with Tyrion. What does that mean? It's just ooze? Oof, maybe it's the ooze that ended the dinosaurs, swallowed them up in tar pits. Anyway, the Fanged Druids call it the world tyrant, for it has consumed entire ecosystems that it keeps suspended in its core. To look upon it is to see the world as it was eons ago. So yeah, it is the ooze that ate the dinosaurs. It's the tar pit. Okay, cool. Aptly named. And good on me for reading that wherever I read it, however long ago. Is it the La Brea tar pit? I feel like it's like in California. But my brain goes like, pretty sure that's not the call I'm expecting. And they'll leave a message. It is in LA. Okay. I was like, isn't the La Brea tar pit in LA? Then I was like, LA? No. But yeah, I guess it is. Tar pit in California. It's closed. What? Open up the tar pit. I'm kidding. What does that mean though? The tar. Wow. I'm like, what is Brea? What is La Brea? The tar. What's interesting is though, interestingly, Los Angeles is like the city of angels, right? So there's the tar pit in the city of angels. Is there something there? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like my hair is growing so much. And while I appreciate it, it's like it messes up like the style. You know what I mean? I just got my hair done. It's fine. I appreciate the growth. Um yeah, anyway, so dinosaur ooze. Again, Earth is establishing itself to be an element of contention, which isn't surprising, I guess. The Fang Druids call it the world tyrant, for it has consumed entire ecosystems that it keeps suspended in its core. To look upon it is to see the world as it was eons ago. What's interesting about this is, though, our relationship with the past. The past being like emerald tablets from Atlantis and like all of this stuff. Like fallen civilizations, Lemuria, and who knows why they're not around anymore. I don't I haven't like delved too deep into it, but from what I've heard, most of those civilizations like ended for a reason. You know, even in the myths, the stories, the legends, even in what survives to this day, right? And it's like, so like we really want to replicate, we really want to prove that humanity will never learn its lesson, don't we? Yeah, let's they march to their doom. Let's follow in their footsteps. Anyway, it's fine. The context more so going to the whole in the broader picture of what's going on or recently, like I guess within the context of power, there may be some that prove themselves using someone else's or attempting to use someone else's knowledge or power or whatever. And there's a difference between researched power, from or researched anything from a people's gone by and like having an ancestral tie, having that knowing within your makeup in some way. And you can take that as it resonates, right? I have a tie to whatever fallen. Oh, so you're one of the fallen ones that have come back to lead others to also fall. Cool, got it. I'm kidding. That was a joke. All right, that one wasn't like actually a joke. Um, yeah, but it's because it's like these worlds. Like you see the world as it was eons ago. You don't see the world as it is, and you don't see the world as it will be. You see it preserved in this pit that just consumes. And maybe that's another part of our nature too. When we look for better, we only have the context of all that we know and all that we've already experienced. And so that was another, actually, or also that was another part of the narrative that it was almost like even if it is true, right? Even if someone you you could say even if someone is or was on that path, knowing of the journey and knowing of what they would find at its conclusion or at a point of meeting or whatever, because we are people and everything passes through our own filters. Even what we channel, what we download, what we receive, it still passes through a filter, right? Like as we try to make sense of it, or as what we already know is used to communicate an idea. Because again, going back to the translator, how someone has to know what a horse is and what a horse can do to be able to grasp the concept of a workhorse. If somebody don't even know what a horse is, how would you explain to them, right? So that's the filter. It is our own knowing understanding. Like there has to be some kind of context to communicate something. Oh, I've been meaning. Oh my gosh, I've been meaning to ask. It's fine. I'll send you a message. I'll reach out. You popped into my mind. Was it yesterday or the day? I was like in the grocery store and I was like, it was like one of those get in and get out things. And I was like, oh, Kirsty. And then I got off the grocery store and my brain was like, anyway, but thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I'll see you around soon. If I say it, then it has to happen, right? Yeah, I'll see you around. Thanks for stopping by. Um, oh, what was I saying? I forgot. It's fine. What was I saying? Every time I get lost, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna pause this and watch it back a few seconds because I can. All right, so I watched back what I was talking about. Can't necessarily say I remember why I was going there, but talking about the filter that everything passes through. Even if we are, it's like even if from the crown chakra to the throat, it is clear for us to receive at the crown, things still pass through our understanding, context that we know, or situations to convey an idea. Everything passes through that filter, through a filter. Why was I talking about the filter? I don't remember. It's fine. We have this dinosaur ooze. I don't know. I don't. I'm inclined. Ooh, well, I don't know. We'll just leave it there. Next card is the camera launcher. We have an artifact creature and artifact construct. So for 3 mana, you can put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Activate each exhaust ability only once. So this camera launcher can spit out, not only can it spit out Thopters, but it also powers itself up. There are no vowels in this name. VNWXT. I'll just say V's. These contract demanded at least one dedicated camera on him at all times. What I love about this camera launcher, you see that? It generates these Thopters. So I guess the Thopter is a camera? Oh, yeah, I put that back right. At least one dedicated camera on him at all times. Oh. Is this opportunity? So there's a context through which this all fits, but also there's a story that's being told by the flavor text and the cards in this world. There's the Grand Prix, right? And the Grand Prix is a death race. I'm assuming there's a pretty good prize if people are participating or they don't have a choice. And I guess that pretty good prize would probably something like their freedom or something, right? It feels like there's this energy now. It's like someone's heard that Tyrox is going to be associated with the race in some way, shape, form, or capacity. The prize they don't necessarily care about, but if during the race they can prove themselves, if they can make a good showing at the race, because Tyrox respects power so much, it's like there's no way, at least in their mind, there's no way that like they wouldn't be approached by Tyrox or that Tyrox wouldn't be open to some form of diplomatic relations because Tyrox, to the autocracy, diplomacy is a matter of power, not paper. They see the race as an opportunity to show or prove themselves to be powerful. With the context of this, someone needing a camera on them at all times, it gives this tune-up a new flavor as well. I mean, technically, this was down here. Maybe I should have kept it down here. I started a new line at Tyrox and then I moved it up. I wonder if Pia and Doretti are also participating to prove themselves as powerful. Which is interesting. I mean, in human ego, right? Or ego in general. Because it's almost the flavor of, I don't want to say self importance. But it's like whatever aspect of whatever is divine, there are people who would want to be associated, affiliated, to move in the world being known as. This is so interesting. I don't have any cards for this. I mean, I could probably grab literally any deck. Um, I don't know. I just got the thought, like the question of like, how do you bypass the filter? I was like, I don't know. Be context clues, like listen well and learn context and be cognizant and aware of the fact that uh, you are processing things through your processor. And there are ways, I feel like there could be ways for someone to compensate for their own filter. I don't know. I don't know why that question just circled back around. Um, I don't know how to communicate this. Like, there would be people that would use the name of some absolute power there are people who would place themselves in proximity to an absolute power to feel powerful or to gain power or to have some kind of authority or rule. There are people who would establish hierarchies within the presence of absolute power and who would place themselves at the top of it. But there is no hierarchy within an autocracy. There is the one or the few with absolute power, and then there's everybody else. There's no proximity to that power that gains anyone any more authority than anyone else. Like, that's kind of literally how that system works, or at least here. That's literally how that system works. There's an energy that would create hierarchy under the name of an absolute power and put itself at the top of it. When that absolute, like, there is no absolute power, there is no hierarchy to that absolute power, right? It's like, if I guess we'll use the cards, Tyrox. Tyrox is known to be powerful, right? And let's say that Tyrox is so powerful and so choosy, so discerning with what Tyrox participates in, that maybe a lot of people don't see Tyrox. It's almost an energy of like, a lot of people would have a knowledge of Tyrox, but they wouldn't actually see Tyrox because Tyrox ain't necessarily out here just like engaging with anybody and everybody, right? I guess again, that whole vacation metaphor of like, if I wanted to deal with kids, I go home to my own. If I'm on vacation or if I'm at work to do a job and then to go home to my kids. You know what I mean? And so there's almost like not an obliviousness, but there's an impact to what Tyrex does. And so they're well known. That's why there are these people who are participating in the race to prove themselves to Tyrex as like worthy or powerful or to like get Tyrex's attention. That's the one thing. There's this other energy that's like, because Tyrox, it's like Tyrox is well known enough that their name has weight, but distant enough that for most people, there's no association to like a face. And so someone could come in and establish, like, someone can come in, use the name of Tyrox to establish themselves as powerful. Or someone could come in and pretend to be Tyrox. And because Tyrox is distant enough that people don't know who and what Tyrox actually is, they like buy into it. This is Hierophant energy. This is high key Hierophant energy. High key, like, not great Hierophant energy. This is the Hierophant that we saw in the Vitruvian edition of the SKT, where an aspect of the divine came down and was like, we're ending this now. Also, what's interesting is I did that reading first, right? I'm listening to my audiobook, and literally the same thing happens in the audiobook. One of the gods comes because there are the devout. In the story, spoiler alert, the gods are named what they do symbolize or are for. So the god is the god healer is the one that manifested. There was the church of healer that did the healing, and then there was this clinic out in the boonies in the old city, and they did it in like the church of healer, the priest, the leader, the hierophant of the church of healer didn't like that somebody was out operating in the boonies healing people but not a part of the church. And so there was like free healing. The people who needed healing would show up and they would get healed, and there was an expansion. They were going to open up the new clinic, and the leader of the church of healer was coming to vandalize it and tear it down. And so the leader is making this whole scene, this whole fast, like, you're not a devout of healer. You don't have the right to be healing people, blah, 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 whatever. Healer manifests. Everyone bows because, of course, healer manifests is like, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Like, that person over there that is coming over here to healing, well, he asked questions. But the story was the person went to the church of healer, was turned away because they couldn't afford the services. And so they went where they could find healing. And healer was like, I heal. That's literally what I'm for. You're supposed to be devout to me, and you refuse healing because people can't pay you money, these exorbitant prices that you're charging. And so you're threatened by this clinic because you're losing business, but you're supposed to be in the business of healing people. And so healers stripped all of basically the whole church, because the whole church was corrupt. I mean, some people argued, well, the corruption was at the top. What were we supposed to do? Healer is like, there are people within this church that were ostracized and kicked out and whatever. They were under the same leadership, but they could still tell right from wrong. And those people have found favor with me because those are the healers that are out to heal people and not turn them away so that the sick, or so that the poor or unfortunate could get sick and die out, and to maintain this order of whatever. That's not what I'm about. I'm about healing. Anyway, they were stripped of their power, and healer blessed the clinic and was like, you do good work out in the community. Like, can I bless? And healer like asked, can I bless your clinic? Can I let people know that you have my blessing? And the person was like, I'd be honored, because they're all about healing, right? So anyway, it's kind of sort of like that. Like, there's a similar energy here to someone who would create a hierarchy and establish themselves at the top of it in relation to some absolute power. And that's why I was like, it's a little hierophantic. And it is. Anyway, those are the things that are happening around Tyrox. There are some who are competing to impress Tyrox. There are others who aren't necessarily here, but the feeling, the vibe just came through. There are others that would rely on both the name of Tyrox and the distance of Tyrox to establish themselves as whatever. I don't know if and again, I guess in the metaphor in the metaphor too, the hierophant and hierophantic, whatever. I don't know the level of involvement that Tyrox would have to people who are just like using their name to do whatever. Chino's like rubbing up against the wall right now. I don't know if you heard that, but that was Chino. He's like, I'm out here. Yeah, you staying out there too. I'm just kidding. I would let him in, but it's fine. I need to get through this. I'm supposed to have a phone call. Next, we have the Dynamite Diver, which is a goblin pilot. I almost said pirate. A goblin pilot. This one associated with fire. This creature saddles, mounts, and crews vehicles. Wait, this creature settles mounts and cruise vehicles as though its power were too greater. When this creature dies, it deals one damage to any target. Launch the explosions. No, you idiot, not like that. Redshift. What's this? Rocketeer Chief. Now we have this Goblin of Fire. It can mount any vehicle as if its power were too greater. So it's 1/1, but it can mount up to like 3 power. Now I don't know if this is this is another whole line. I don't know if this is necessarily like commandeering someone else's vehicle or like driving its own. Actually, I was gonna draw an association to this goblin with the element of fire because fire is the element, especially we saw it in Seize Opportunity, also the Rugged Highlands. We see the fiery world through that portal. We saw it with the Shark Pirate and also Tyrox. And so I was like, oh, like this goblin is in the same element. It feels like, excuse me, along with the whole like Tyrox respects an autocracy, not necessarily Tyrox specifically, but like an autocracy would the autocracy would engage in equal or greater powers, but there was also that like it feels like if there's a lesser power that's respectable, it would also respect that power, right? This one power, one toughness, dynamite diver, goblin pilot, it can pilot mounts and cruise vehicles that are like 2 power greater than itself. Tyrax has 4 power, so still not as powerful as Tyrax. But I feel like that's the kind of thing that would catch Tyrox's like attention, right? This little 1/1 nothing, what should be a 1/1 nothing, can mount like 3 power vehicles up to 3. Are you serious? Tyrox like, whoa, that's like one below me. And for like this goblin like that is surprising, but a pleasant surprise. What's also interesting about this coming out after like all of these people like using the name of Tyrox or all of these people trying to prove themselves as powerful and trying to get in good with Tyrox, like here's this like little random goblin, this dynamite diver that's throwing like exploding, causing all this havoc, that is proving itself to be far more powerful than you would think, far more powerful than it is, because it's 1/1 power, but it can maneuver, drive, operate up to 2 power greater. That takes me back to the energy from yesterday, where it was like to be initiated into whatever, or before the gift of the divine is received, like someone's already operating at the level of major arcana. But because Tyrox is here and the mention of the autocracy is here, I'm not surprised because the autocracy is based off of absolute power and not relative power. Maybe that's why these don't really get the attention of Tyrox because they're trying to get some kind of relative power through association with Tyrox. But Tyrox is all about absolute power, right? And again, like you can fall under the protection of Tyrox. You can join the autocracy. You can be a member. And it's like um, you can exist under the love and the guidance and the protection of, I guess, the divine or some aspect of the divine. But that doesn't necessarily make us like any kind of, I guess, like leader or extension of that power or anything. And again, it's like there it falls under that energy of like what is against human nature and the recognition of those who can operate beyond their base nature, I guess. And of course, being human, there are certain things that we need. But also as humans, we will always have needs, or we will always think that we do. And so that's another reason why like needing or wanting needing isn't enough to warrant whatever, because we'll always have needs. Even the powerful have needs, right? Even the wealthy have needs. Even the everyone has needs. It never stops with people. But again, this dynamite diver is like out making a name for itself under its own power. Next is Brightfield Glider. This is a possum mount creature. It has vigilance. Whenever this creature attacks while saddled, it gets one power and two toughness and gains flying until end of turn. So tap any number of other creatures you control with total power three or more. This mount becomes saddled until end of turn. Saddle only as a sorcery. We have this play of fire and light again. The dynamite diver has one power, one toughness. To saddle the Brightfield glider, you need three power or more. The dynamite diver can saddle mounts as though its power were two greater. The dynamite diver alone is enough to saddle this Brightfield glider. And this mount has flying. This ain't like some car on the ground or some vehicle on the ground that it looks like there. The only other creature we see is the camera launcher. Oh, see, this makes sense. The camera launcher is two power and two toughness. The camera, what did it say? V's contract demanded at least one dedicated camera on him at all times. The camera is this 1/1 Thopter artifact creature. V's contract demands that there be one camera on him at all times because that would give him the power that he needs to mount the Brightfield glider. 2+1 would be the three that's required. But the dynamite diver can do it on its own. And again, speaking of needs and circumstances, within the right circumstances, it's easy to do nearly anything. That's why people aren't defined by their circumstances. Not completely, at the very least. And again, It's the absolute power of the Goblin Diver that Tyrax recognizes, rather than this person that's trying to make a good show. But my contract demands that I always be in favorable conditions. My contract demands that you always shoot me from my good side. Is that girl? Okay, sure. Anyway. Now we got some water. Sky Streak Engineer. We have a human pilot. So for 4 mana, you can is that 4 mana and a water? You can put 2+1/+1 counters on this creature. You can activate each exhaust ability only once. Garima was delighted to finally test out her design. The amazing views were a bonus. Oh, it flies. Is this another absolute power? An absolute power of water? So Garima's design allows her to fly. She doesn't need the bright field glider to get into the air. Right. Like this competition. It's not really a competition, but to V, it's a competition. V thinks that they're viable and competing when in the eyes of Tyrox, they've already been whatever. Um what this takes me to is the challenge of the 8 of chalices and the 9 of chalices. You could use either wisdom or intellect to discern which of the 8 or 9 challenges is the right one. 90% chance of failure if you just like guess. Well, technically, that's already compounded. Right? Because it's like an 11 or 12.5%. It's an 11 or 12.5% getting like 1 out of 8 chalices or 1 out of 9. But there's the wisdom or intellect check with a DC 18. So it's like there's the wisdom or intellect on top of also making the right choice. Anyway, as we looked at it, it was mostly about wisdom. It was all about wisdom. The King of Chalices came out, which was the Sage of Water, the Archmage of Water. But the Sky Streak Engineer is taking the route of intelligence. It's her design. I don't know if this is a different power to Tyrox. It doesn't necessarily. One second. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know if this is Tyrox or another sort of authority. Or, I mean, Tyrox could also respect intellect. Tyrox could also respect intellect as they do power, or as they would like might. Intellect is nothing but power of the mind, where might is power of the body. And it is just about power, right? Maybe there's a power of the spirit, power of the mind, and power of the body. Next is Silken Strength. This is an aura. Enchant creature or vehicle. When this aura enters untapped, enchanted permanent. Enchanted permanent gets +1/+2 and has reach. Reach again can touch whatever is flying. Usually, only other flying things can interact with what is flying. Our shark pirate had reach, and it also has 4 power and 5 toughness. It's as powerful as Tyrox, but like way tougher. The sea's full of chime, and we want our pick. I don't think I ever said what this is. There was this vibe of, again, like there's more and more people making it to the city. It feels like there are people, the patrons, whoever the patrons are, aspects of the divine or divinity that's like wanting to like almost like it's almost like a draft, like a sports draft. Where I don't know if you place bids on, I don't know how drafts work, but it's like you have a pool of talent and there are people that you like want on your team to do whatever, right? Tyrox could be one of those people. Tyrox would be. I guess this the Thunderhead Gunner would be another. The Thunderhead Gunner might actually be the one that would scout the Sky Streak Engineer. Tyrox would scout the Dynamite Driver because it's within the Dynamite Driver's own capabilities to mount this Bright Field Glider. The Gunner would scout the Sky Streak Engineer, maybe, because both involve that element of like engineering, right? Firing the cannons, the gunner, this flying vehicle. And I love that it's like a human pilot too. I love that it's a human pilot because it's like it is within the realm of capability of man to become superhuman. Not necessarily within their nature, but within their capabilities for sure. And that's why it's like not unfair. There's no whatever, right? Because we don't have to have anything and we can live like happy and fulfilling lives without it. That's why it's not guaranteed, or that's why we're not entitled to whatever. Next is Siphon Fuel. Oof, not the gas guzzlers coming back. Target creature gets -6/-6 until end of turn, and you gain 2 life. There is nothing with 6 power or toughness on the field. I take it back. Oh, that is wow. Wow. One second. I don't think this is a card. Okay. All right. We're back. Uh the only creature on the table that's powerful enough that has more than 6/6 power and toughness is Tarion, the World Tyrant. After years of hunger, the oil thirsting vampires of Gastal family had their fill. Oh, and this is a tar pit. Interesting. So in the vein of the single use dragons that weren't necessarily the result of a connection, but was like, okay, like, we'll help you out. These gas guzzlers only feed on the dead, only feed on whatever. They can only, not only is this the only creature powerful enough to like be weakened and not just completely whatever, it's also the only one that's like just ooze. It's literally an ooze monster. This would be the oil that they feed on. It can't completely weaken it though. It can make it significantly less tough, tough enough for nearly anything to defeat, but most of the cards on the table would also be defeated by it. So because of that, there is this there is this like we're not given more than we can bear type of energy, but it can push us to our limit. The strongest thing on the table that's not Tyrox or the Gunner is the Sky Streak Engineer, 3 toughness, and it would have 3 power left. It would push us to our limits, but being human, the part of the evolution of being human or being a person is for us to overcome our limits. And to overcome our limits, more often than not, we have to be pushed to them before we make that breakthrough. Right. So again, that's part of the, even if this isn't necessarily whatever, like the gas guzzlers, it's part of that whole like, we are allowed to suffer through challenge and adversity because it gives us the opportunity to grow. And last, we have crash and burn. You can either destroy a target vehicle or crash and burn deal 6 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Redshift told his team to destroy the competition. They were thrilled to discover he meant it literally. We've seen Redshift. Launch the explosives. No, you idiot. Not like that. Redshift, the Rocketeer Chief, was on the flavor text of the Dynamite Diver. And then we have Crash and Burn. So this 6 damage to target creature is more than enough to destroy a weakened Tarian World Tyrant. I think too, Tyrox by itself isn't enough to destroy Tarian the World Tyrant. And maybe that's because within the because of divine non-intervention and because we have free will, there are certain things that are for us to overcome individually and collectively. This Dynamite Diver working in conjunction because it's also under Redshift. Maybe that's why Tyrox has taken an interest in the Dynamite Diver too. Because not only has it proven itself strong enough to mount vehicles that require up to 2 more power than it has, but it also has this crash and burn tactic where it could take out the weakened planes or the weakened world tyrant. Because the world tyrant is an earthly force, there's limited intervention that an element of divinity can sort of like do, right? If it were anything beyond earthly, then it could, I'm assuming, intervene. But because it's an earthly force, there's only so much that can be done. And you could say it's a matter of consequence, but a consequence of like a collective of individuals that has grown more severe with time. I'm almost done. Um, Sky Streak Engineer, Silken Strength, Siphon Fuel, Crash and Burn, Camera Launcher. Why am I reading these? Anyway, sorry, my focus is like drifting now. Let me get it back. We're almost done. Yeah, so Tyrax recognizes that the Dynamite Diver, even with that 3 power, it would be enough to take out. But again, with that up to 2 power greater, oh, exhaust. But again, that goes to the whole point or the whole matter of sometimes in order to overcome our limits, we must meet them. If the Sky Streaker pays the mana cost to exhaust itself, it would have enough power to defeat the weakened planes, the weakened Tarian. I keep wanting to say Planewalker, the weakened Tarian World Tyrant, and it would have no, yeah, it would have 5 toughness, so it would survive. But it has to push itself to a point of exhaustion to do that. The Dynamite Diver could throw explosives and be just fine. It can drive the car, it can drive them out for mobility and then throw explosives. The 6 damage from the explosives would be enough to, I guess it would just have to be outside the range of the explosive to not take any like collateral damage. But both of these would be enough to defeat the weakened Planeswalker. So, with the Divine sort of operating up to the point of its non interference agreement in order to uphold the sanctity of free will, both of these would be enough to defeat the weakened Planeswalker. I keep saying the weakened World Tyrant. Cool. Technically, the cameraman would be, well, technically the camera launcher could exhaust itself and like with the Thopters, it could do it too. I'm trying to think if within the same turn power is cumulative in Magic the Gathering. I don't remember. Meaning like if the Thopters could whittle away the health of the World Tyrant, destroying themselves in the process, then yes. Cool. I guess that's it. Um, yeah, that's what I got. Excuse me. Interesting. I almost want to pull at least one more card, but I don't know if this will necessarily pull this. And I'm not exactly sure how this will interact. I'm gonna pull a card from the Whispers of Lord Ganesha. Determination was one of the last cards, and it's red and fiery. Love that energy. Splendor was the other one, if you're curious. Oh, the blank one. That was barely a shuffle. Spiritual practice and courage at the cut. You can see the lion mount. Speaking of mounting, things are having mounts, I guess. Mounts are crude vehicles. Did something flip over? No. I want to clean flip or clean fall, so I'm just going to keep shuffling until I get one. And there's our flip. Belonging is the card that flipped over. That came out. Was it? I feel like I was using the SKT. When it comes to the patrons, or these patrons, or whatever aspect of the divine recognizes whatever, or that authority, this is why I feel like in the trials and to receive those gifts, someone was already operating in the realm of the major arcana. This card of belonging implies that there's something within the spirit of man that calls to whatever element and aspect of divinity. And that's literally like basically how it came out. Well, it was more so like that wasn't the recognition piece, that was like the doing piece. There are things that must be done. There are earthly human matters that must be resolved by people, by humans. Right. And even if the divine were to manifest or whatever, it would have to do so as a human and interact as a human because it's a worldly human problem, right? Or situation. And it read more like an aspect of like the divine entrusting someone compassionate to be like the love of God on earth, like to show the love of God by being a loving person. And others would see the love of God like through that person's actions, intentions, and heart, more so than that person would advertise themselves to be whatever. So yeah, the the Thunderhead Gunner recognizing the Sky Streak Engineer through like ingenuity and intellect. The Tyrox, the Sword Tyrant, recognizing the Dynamite Diver through like a might. Also, I did catch that like Silken Strength was the name that came out because I was like, you know, power of the mind, power of body, power of spirit, and then Silken Strength. Um, It feels like it's that. Like we are made in the image of the creator. There's a part, piece, and parcel of the divine within us. And through certain situations, as we overcome our limitations, as we realize more of our potential, it's like that piece within us shines brighter and brighter, calling the attention of whatever aspect of the divine corresponds to that piece. It's like it finds belonging within us as we find belonging within it. And thus the connection is established, I guess. Interesting. It almost makes me think of I've seen a few shows, like few animes, where there are like spirits in the world and there are like rituals, or not even necessarily rituals. There are like natural and magical ways to come in contact with a spirit. And it's like a person meets their spirit, familiar partner, or whatever, and a bond is established. It's almost like that. But there are like different kinds of spirits, and there are different, from a human perspective and with an earthly mind, it would read like a hierarchy. Like there are some spirits that are more powerful than others, but in truth, maybe they're all just like different, right? Like, if you have spirits of water and you have some that are associated with like oceans and some that are associated with the rains that fall in storms and tidal waves, and then you have some that are like ponds or puddles or lakes. If you're in a situation that calls for a puddle of water, it's better to have a puddle of water than a tidal wave. You know what I mean? You have a tidal wave where you need a puddle, it may cause more destruction than any of the help that it would be sought to alleviate. So that's why it's like it's different. There are like differences, but also one isn't necessarily better or more powerful than the other. And maybe there's like all kinds of spirits, good ones, bad ones, and they're like finding belonging in people. And that's where those bonds and connections are sort of made, right? Like, let's say there's a spirit of jealousy, and there's someone who drinks from either the cup of the boon or the bane, but quickly grows envious. That make like the spirit of jealousy finds belonging with their envy. There is someone who is very generous and who always helps someone in need. The spirits of generosity or compassion can find belonging in that person. And maybe that's what this silken strength is, because it's earth aura. There's not only bad forces on earth, or like there's not only bad earthly forces, there are also the earthly forces that overcome them or that combat them, that sit on the other side of the polarity, right? Where there is greed, there is also generosity. Where there is hatred, there is love. Where there is ruthlessness, there is kindness. Where there is someone who would seek to take advantage of people, there are others that would seek to empower. But the belonging here, again, it's absolute power that connects to absolute power rather than absolute power that connects to a relative power, right? Like, I have a few minutes, it's fine, I guess. Like, let's say someone is looking to attract a spirit of might or a spirit of righteousness or a spirit of power. And so they take a relative power approach, right? They are powerful because of the people that they intimidate, or they're powerful because of how selectively they engage. Like they never engage anything that they deem to be below them, but below them, like they never engage anything that they consider to be above them. They never engage anything like stronger, nothing that would truly challenge them. Always something that they would make a good show of. Like they always punch down type of energy. And what finds them maybe like a spirit of like dominion, or I guess more like domineering, or whatever. Something like associated with power, but it's power that is like quote unquote misused. It's not, it's more like self righteous than actually like righteous. Like a spirit of self righteousness. Maybe they like form a connection to a spirit of self righteousness rather than the spirit of righteousness. Something like that. Subtle, of whatever degree, but different. But Tyrox, the Thunderhead Gunner, those are absolute powers that connect to absolute powers. Be it power of the mind, body, or spirit. With the Sky Street Gunner and the Thunderhead Gunner, you could say it's a power of the mind. With Tyrox, actually, with Tyrox and the Dynamite Diver, you may be able to say it's a power of spirit. Because I was leaning more towards power of the body with Tyrox, but it's almost like it's a determination for the Dynamite Diver. It's either a self belief or a determination that allows them to mount a vehicle that is two power greater. If it were a power of the body, it would be equal power. It's the power of the spirit that enhances the body. Whoa. So now it's like we getting tricky. Not necessarily, but something that something that observably would be seen as a power of the body, but it's actually a power of the spirit. Just like you could say it's the power of the heart that gives people superhuman strength whenever they need to protect one of their loved ones. Their heart enhances the body. Cool. I don't know, but it's almost like it's like draft day. Everyone's arriving. It's like maybe the new class. Everyone's arriving to the city. The absolute power's like, oh, like I want that one. I want that one. Maybe people are like, I don't know. Maybe someone's arguing, like, especially when it comes to like the Dynamite Diver, right? Maybe there is like a power of the body that's like, oh, it requires strength to mount. And then maybe there's a power of spirit that's like, yeah, it may require strength, but it's their determination that allows them to do that. And determination is of the spirit. And then maybe there's a power of the mind that's like, oh, no, that's cunning. That's intellect. They're using technique. Technique has nothing to do with the body and it has nothing to do with the spirit. That is all information, knowledge based. That is of the mind. And depending on how big the kerfuffle, I guess that's caused, depending on how much they argue, maybe they arrive at the conclusion that someone will be blessed or have connection to all three: a power of the mind, a power of the body, and a power of the spirit. To, prevent further arguments or to reach a conclusion. Almost like if Harry got sorted into all of the houses instead of the hat just picking one. I don't know. I started watching Owl House, and multi-track is something that they do. Prosperity at the bottom of the deck. Interesting. Splendor. So it's belonging and prosperity where we saw splendor with determination. I'm gonna get a final card. Understanding is there. I'm gonna get a final card. But yeah. Cool. I guess this is kind of almost like the next step. And what's interesting is in the story of the Archangel Commander, and even with the destroyer being the gift of the spirit, it's like the Archangel Commander, generosity and joy. The Archangel Commander is almost was like the trainer or the mentor, not necessarily the power that someone aligns to after. And I guess I never necessarily thought about that before. Maybe I say for some, I don't take it as it resonates if it resonates when it resonates. If I try to force this to fit, that would be a filter that is not needed. I can just say whatever and allow resonance to give it context, right? I can say whatever and allow resonance to be the vessel that is filled by the liquid to take whatever shape. I don't have to know what form the liquid will take to speak it. I was going to say maybe there are some that are initiated by like one power or co-signed by one power, but then upon completion are taken under the wing of another. And I guess it's interesting. It's an interesting concept for hierarchy to not exist within the autocracy, but for the top of the autocracy to have networks. But that is the nature of diplomacy. It's in respect of that power, courage, and generosity. Okay, all right. Let's get this final card, please. It's been 2.5 hours. I still need to get my exercise in. I didn't even eat breakfast. I don't know how long I thought this would be. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this means. Fulfillment, number 6. With the bottom of the deck being prosperity again. Oh, look, 4, 5, 6. And belonging is behind prosperity. Many times I shuffled this. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that fulfillment is here. When that belonging is found and that connection is made, I feel like anything that anyone would do would give them a sense of fulfillment. I feel like it would be so easy for like anything to feel like purpose at that point, right? The Sky Streak engineer is recognized by an absolute power of the mind. And now they are inventing and creating with materials and to levels that they never would have imagined. How could they not be fulfilled? Right? It's like fulfillment is a natural, um, I don't want to say like a natural byproduct necessarily, but I will say a natural reaction. Fulfillment would be a natural reaction. So that's what I got. I hope y'all have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path journey and what you find. And yeah, I feel like there isn't necessarily anything else that feels like pressing, right? There's no more booster packs. There's not a deck that I haven't used in a while that I really want to use. I still haven't used the Archeo, but that's fine. I don't know. I don't know. I guess you'll see me when you see me. Thanks, Kirsty, again for stopping. I know you're not here, but thanks for stopping by. It was so lovely.